My name is Bessie, and I'm 55 years old. For 28 years, I believed I had the perfect marriage. Our beautiful Atlanta suburban home was my pride, and Jack was my world. Then came that terrible night when he burned my passport. I still remember his cruel words as he watched it turn to ash. What he didn't know was that his betrayal had finally awakened something in me, something that would change both our lives forever. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you want more stories about women who refuse to be victims. Trust me, what happened next will make you rethink everything about loyalty. I met Jack during my sophomore year at the University of Georgia. I was studying elementary education, and he was pursuing a business degree with dreams of making it big in finance. He was handsome, ambitious, and had a charisma that drew everyone to him. When he singled me out at a campus party, I couldn't believe my luck. Our romance was a whirlwind. Late-night conversations about our dreams, spontaneous road trips, and the feeling that together we could conquer the world. We married right after graduation when we were both 27. Our wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect. My parents gave us a small loan for a down payment on our first house, a modest starter home in a decent neighborhood. Jack landed a job as a junior financial advisor at a well-respected firm in Atlanta, and I began teaching third grade at a local elementary school. Those early years were full of hope and hard work. We were building our life brick by brick. When Jack would come home exhausted from trying to impress clients, I'd have dinner waiting. When he needed to work weekends, I understood. His success was our success, or so I believed. When our first child, Emma, arrived 2 years into our marriage, we were overjoyed. Thomas followed 3 years later. Jack was making steady progress at his firm, and I took a step back from teaching to focus on raising our children. It wasn't really a choice we discussed at length. Jack simply said, "The kids need their mother," and I agreed. My teaching career was put on indefinite hold. As Jack climbed the corporate ladder, we moved to a larger home in an upscale Atlanta suburb. The house was beautiful with 4 bedrooms, a spacious backyard, and a kitchen I'd always dreamed of. I threw myself into making our house a home, while Jack spent increasingly longer hours at the office. "Building our future," he would say whenever I mentioned how much the children missed him. "Do you want them to have the best education, the best opportunities? That's what I'm working for." How could I argue with that? So I kept my loneliness to myself and focused on being the perfect wife and mother. I joined the PTA-hosted dinner parties for Jack's colleagues and made sure our home was spotless for the impromptu gatherings he would sometimes announce hours before bringing important clients home. As the children grew, Jack's absences became more noticeable. Business trips that used to be once a quarter became monthly, then weekly. Late nights at the office became the norm rather than the exception. There were signs I chose to ignore. The way he would guard his phone, how he would step outside to take certain calls, the vague explanations about why he needed to fly to Chicago for the 3rd time in a month. "It's just work, Bessie," he would say with irritation whenever I asked too many questions. "Not everyone has the luxury of being home all day." That stung, especially since my days were filled with managing our household, volunteering at school functions, and making sure everything in Jack's life ran smoothly. But I swallowed my hurt and carried on. When our children left for college, I hoped Jack and I would reconnect. Emma went to NYU and Thomas chose UCLA. Suddenly, our large house felt emptier than ever. I suggested trips we could take together, new hobbies we could explore. Jack seemed disinterested in all of it. "I'm at a critical point in my career," he explained. "Maybe when I make partner." Our 25th wedding anniversary should have been special. I planned an intimate dinner at home, cooked his favorite meal, and bought a new dress for the occasion. Jack arrived 2 hours late, barely touched his food, and spent most of the evening checking emails on his phone. It was around this time I became close friends with Sandra, our neighbor from 3 houses down. Recently divorced, she had a refreshing honesty that I found comforting. When I confided my loneliness to her, she didn't offer empty platitudes. "Marriages change," she said, "but you deserve to be seen, Bessie." Those words resonated with me more than I could express. When was the last time Jack had truly seen me? Our beautiful home became my project. I redecorated, planted a garden, and created a space that reflected my taste and personality. Jack barely noticed the changes. He would come home, eat the dinner I prepared, and retreat to his home office until bedtime. "The house looks nice," he might say occasionally, but his eyes never really took in the details, the hours of work I'd put into creating our sanctuary. As Jack approached his 50th birthday, something in him changed. The criticisms began, subtle at first, then increasingly direct. "You might want to consider joining a gym," he said one evening, eyeing me over dinner. "You're not getting any younger. This chicken is too dry. Why would you paint the guest room that color? It looks amateur." Each comment chipped away at my confidence, but I told myself he was just stressed. He was working hard for us. That's what I kept telling myself, even as the evidence suggested otherwise. For our 28th anniversary, I decided to surprise Jack with a weekend getaway to Savannah. I booked a charming bed and breakfast, made reservations at an exclusive restaurant, and even bought new lingerie, hoping to rekindle the spark that had dimmed between us. The day before we were set to leave, Jack called. "I can't make it this weekend. Emergency with the Johnson account. Need to be in the office." I was disappointed but understood. His career had always come first, and I had accepted that long ago. "We can reschedule," I assured him. "The B&B owner said they have availability next month too." "Great," he replied, distracted. "I need to go. Talk later." 3 weeks later, I was organizing our monthly expenses when I noticed a charge on our credit card statement. Hermitage Hotel, Nashville. The same weekend as our planned anniversary trip. The charge included room service and spa treatments. When Jack came home that evening, I casually mentioned the charge. "Did someone get a hold of our credit card? There's a hotel charge from Nashville from a few weeks ago." Jack's face remained impassive, but a slight twitch in his jaw betrayed him. "That was the Johnson client. I had to take him to Nashville instead of handling it here. Forgot to submit it for company reimbursement." The explanation made sense, yet something felt off. "It shows spa charges too." His wife came along. Company policy to treat spouses well. He grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Why are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me after 28 years? The way he turned it around on me made me question myself. Was I being paranoid? Untrusting? I apologized and dropped the subject. But the incident planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't quite shake. I began paying closer attention to his business trips. Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, Miami. I started keeping track in a small notebook. Sometimes the stories didn't add up. A client meeting in Boston that somehow produced a receipt from a restaurant in New York. A conference in Dallas during a weekend when I knew from his company's website that no such event was taking place. Jack's control over our finances tightened. For years, I had managed our household budget while he handled investments and major financial decisions. Now he questioned every purchase I made. "Do you really need another houseplant? The place looks like a jungle already." $60 for a haircut. My barber charges $20. "Why did you buy organic? The regular stuff is half the price." When I tried to discuss the state of our marriage, suggesting perhaps we should see a counselor, Jack dismissed me entirely. "There's nothing wrong with our marriage that you can't fix by being less needy," he said. "This is female hysteria. Maybe talk to your doctor about hormones." I was 54 years old, not ancient, but Jack made me feel increasingly invisible and irrelevant. Still, I tried. I cooked his favorite meals. I made sure his shirts were pressed exactly how he liked them. I didn't bring up difficult topics that might upset him. Then came the day I found unfamiliar perfume on his dress shirt, a distinct heavy floral scent that definitely wasn't mine. I prefer light, clean fragrances. This was bold, sensual, and unmistakable. "What's this smell on your shirt?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jack barely looked up from his laptop. Amber from accounting bumped into me with her coffee. She hugged me to apologize, probably got her perfume on me then. It was plausible. but the knot in my stomach tightened. I added Amber from accounting to my mental list of things that didn't quite add up. That night I couldn't sleep. Anxiety kept me awake, replaying conversations, searching for clues I might have missed. When did my marriage start to crumble? Was it salvageable? Was I fighting alone to save something that was already lost? The criticism of my appearance intensified. Jack would make comments about women half my age, how they maintained their figures, how they dressed. He bought me a gym membership for Christmas without discussing it first. He left brochures for cosmetic procedures on the kitchen counter. "Just trying to help," he said when I confronted him. "Don't you want to look good for me?" I started documenting everything in my journal, every inconsistency, every hurtful comment, every financial decision made without my input. Not with any clear purpose, but it made me feel less crazy, less like I was imagining things. What I didn't realize then was that this journal would eventually become my salvation. In early spring, I received an unexpected email from my college roommate, Diane. She was getting married in Tuscany that summer and wanted me to attend. We hadn't seen each other in person for years, though we kept in touch through social media and occasional phone calls. The invitation thrilled me. Italy. I had never been to Europe despite years of dreaming about it. That evening, I showed Jack the invitation. "Diane's getting married in Italy. Isn't that exciting?" Jack barely glanced up from his phone. "Diane from college? Isn't this her third marriage?" "Second," I corrected. "And she's really happy. James seems wonderful." His disinterest was palpable. "I'd like to go," I said carefully. "It's in July. Italy is expensive. I've been saving from my holiday baking business. I can pay for it myself." For the past few years, I'd been selling homemade cookies and cakes during the holidays. Not for the money, really, but for the joy of creating something people appreciated. Jack shrugged. "I guess. If you want to waste your money on watching someone start another failed marriage, that's your choice." It wasn't enthusiasm, but it wasn't a no. I took it as permission and began making plans. My passport had expired years ago, so my first step was to apply for a new one. I gathered the necessary documents, got new photos taken, and submitted my application. The process gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. While organizing papers for my passport application, I came across Jack's phone bill. I don't know what made me look at it closely. Perhaps some intuition, or perhaps the growing suspicion that had been building for months. What I found made my heart sink. Dozens of calls and texts to the same number, often late at night or early morning, sometimes during weekends when he claimed to be at the office. I shouldn't have done it. I knew it was wrong. But that night, while Jack was showering, I checked his phone. It was the first time in 28 years of marriage that I had invaded his privacy this way. His password was our anniversary date, which struck me as both ironic and sad. The text messages confirmed my worst fears. Amber wasn't just an accounting colleague who had accidentally spilled coffee on him. The messages between them were intimate, explicit, and devastating. Plans for rendezvous, complaints about having to go home to me, Jack telling her he was only staying with me until he could figure out the financials. When Jack came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, his phone in my hand. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his face flushing with anger. "Who's Amber?" My voice was surprisingly steady. "I told you she works in accounting." He snatched the phone from my hand. "Why are you snooping through my phone? That's a violation of my privacy." "And sleeping with someone else is a violation of our marriage," I replied. Jack's denial was immediate and forceful. "You're being ridiculous. There's nothing going on with Amber or anyone else. You're imagining things because you're bored and have nothing better to do than create drama." Despite having seen the evidence with my own eyes, Jack's conviction almost made me doubt myself. Almost. "I saw the texts, Jack." "What texts? Show me these supposed texts." His confident demand made me falter. Had I imagined them? "You can't because they don't exist. This is exactly what I mean. You're becoming paranoid, Bessie. Maybe you should talk to someone professional about these delusions. The gaslighting continued for days. Jack became more critical, more controlling. He started telling our friends and even our children that I was going through something, suggesting I was emotionally unstable. When Emma called to check on me concerned about what her father had told her, I felt utterly alone. Only Sandra believed me without question. Classic manipulation, she said when I confided in her. He's trying to discredit you before you can expose him. Her words gave me strength, but I still felt trapped. I began researching divorce quietly, using the computer at the local library to avoid Jack seeing my search history. The information was overwhelming. Georgia's equitable distribution laws, alimony considerations after long-term marriages, how to document financial assets. One evening, Jack came home and found divorce information in my browser history. I had forgotten to clear it after looking up something quickly at home. His rage was frightening. "Planning to leave me after everything I've done for you," he shouted. "You'd be nothing without me. Who would want you at your age?" His words cut deep, but somewhere inside a small voice whispered that they weren't true. I was more than Jack's wife. I had to be. The monitoring intensified after that. Jack checked my phone regularly. He questioned where I went during the day. He installed a new Wi-Fi system that tracked internet usage. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Then I found the receipt. A small slip of paper that had fallen out of his jacket pocket while I was doing laundry. An expensive jewelry store in Atlanta. A diamond necklace worth thousands. It was dated 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, a holiday when I had received nothing but a hastily purchased drugstore card. The evidence of Jack's betrayal was mounting, but so was my determination to reclaim my life. I just didn't know how yet. In early June, my new passport arrived. The little blue booklet felt like freedom in my hands. I tucked it away in my dresser drawer beneath my sweaters where Jack wouldn't look. Diane's wedding was just 6 weeks away, and despite everything happening with Jack, I was determined to go. That same week, while using our shared laptop to check email, a notification popped up. Jack's calendar synced to the computer showed a new event, Italy business trip July 15, 22, the exact dates of Diane's wedding. My first thought was coincidence. Perhaps he had business in Italy the same week. But something felt off. I clicked on the calendar entry and my blood ran cold. The details showed flight information for 2 people, Jack Thompson and Amber Davis. Hotel reservations at the exact resort where Diane's wedding was taking place. I sat staring at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only was he planning to take his mistress to Italy, but to the same location where he knew I would be attending my friend's wedding. When Jack came home that evening, I confronted him directly. "I saw your calendar. You're going to Italy for business." He seemed momentarily thrown, but recovered quickly. "Yes, potential international client. Big opportunity. The same week as Diane's wedding, at the same resort. Is it? What a coincidence." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The client chose the location. And you need to bring Amber from accounting?" His expression hardened. "It's a complex deal. She's handling the numbers." "Jack, please." My voice cracked with emotion. "Just tell me the truth. I know about you and Amber." A tense silence filled the room. For a moment, I thought he might continue denying it. Instead, something in him seemed to snap. "Fine. Yes, Amber and I are involved. Has been happening for over a year now. She understands me, appreciates me, doesn't question my every move." The admission after so many denials left me breathless. "How could you? 28 years, Jack. Our whole life together." He shrugged, a gesture so dismissive of our marriage that it physically hurt to witness. "It just happened. She's young, exciting, makes me feel alive. And I don't—" Tears burned in my eyes. "Honestly, no. You're comfortable, Bessie, like an old chair. But Amber, she's passionate, ambitious. We connect intellectually. Each word was a knife. Old chair. The description of our intimate life as merely comfortable after nearly 3 decades together. So your solution is to take her to Italy, to the same place as Diane's wedding. That was actually her idea. Jack looked almost amused. When I mentioned you were going to a wedding there, she thought it would be fun to be at the same resort. We'd be in different parts, of course. The cruelty of it stunned me. I won't go, I said finally. You can have your romantic getaway with her. Don't be dramatic. Of course you should go to your friend's wedding. We probably won't even run into each other. No. I found my voice growing stronger. I won't be part of this humiliation. You've made your choice clear. I'll cancel my plans. Jack's expression changed to one of irritation. Don't be ridiculous. You've been planning this for months. I'm not going to watch you parade your girlfriend around while I sit alone at a wedding. Then that's your choice. He shrugged again. I'm still going. The tickets are non-refundable and this trip means a lot to Amber. In that moment, something inside me broke. The last thread of hope that our marriage could be saved snapped. What about your wife, Jack? Did you ever consider what might mean a lot to me? His face hardened. You want honesty? Fine. This marriage has been dead for years. You just haven't accepted it. I'm only still here because disentangling our finances would be a nightmare. So I'm just a financial inconvenience now. Don't twist my words. I'm being practical. At our age, divorce is expensive and messy. So your solution is to cheat openly and expect me to accept it. Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Look, we can have an arrangement. I'll be discreet. You can keep your comfortable lifestyle. Win-win. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man who had once vowed to love and cherish me until death was now proposing I turn a blind eye to his infidelity in exchange for financial security. I want to go to Diane's wedding, I said firmly, without having to see you and your mistress. And I want to take Amber to Italy, he countered. The resort is booked solid for the wedding. There's nowhere else nearby. We reached an impasse. Jack refused to change his plans, and I refused to accept them. The argument escalated, voices raised, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. In a moment of desperation, I said, I'll go to the wedding anyway. I'll just avoid you both. Something dangerous flashed in Jack's eyes. He left the room without another word, and I heard him rummaging in my dresser upstairs. When he returned, he was holding my new passport. Jack, what are you doing? Alarm bells rang in my head. Without answering, he walked through the kitchen and out to the backyard where our grill was located. I followed, a sense of dread growing with each step. Jack turned on the grill, the flame catching quickly. Then, with his eyes locked on mine, he held my passport over the fire. You're not going to Italy, he said coldly. Jack, stop. I lunged forward, but it was too late. He dropped my passport onto the flames. I watched in horror as the blue cover blackened and curled. Stay home cleaning and cooking, that's what you do best, he said with contempt in his voice. I'm going to relax. I stood frozen, watching my passport burn, symbol of my hopes and independence, reduced to ash. Jack turned and walked back into the house as if he had just taken out the trash, not destroyed my ability to travel and my dignity along with it. In shock, I sank to the patio chair, tears streaming down my face. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jack calmly pouring himself a scotch, looking at his phone, probably texting Amber about their upcoming trip. The burning of my passport was more than the destruction of a document. It was the final statement that my needs, my desires, my very personhood meant nothing to him. In his eyes, I was property, not a partner. I called Sandra, my voice shaking so badly she could barely understand me. 20 minutes later, she was at my back door, arms wrapping around me as I sobbed. He burned my passport. I kept repeating, the reality of it still sinking in. Sandra's face hardened with anger. That's not just cruel, Bessie. That's abuse. Destruction of government documents is illegal. Her naming it for what it was, abuse, broke something open in me. All these years I had made excuses for Jack's behavior, called it stress, called it midlife crisis, called it anything but what it was. "What am I going to do?" I whispered. Sandra took my hands in hers, her eyes fierce with loyalty. "You're going to get out. Tonight." Tonight? I echoed the idea, both terrifying and exhilarating. But where would I go? What about our assets? The house? "You can stay with me until you figure things out," Sandra said firmly. "As for the rest, I have someone you should talk to." While Jack was upstairs showering, Sandra made a phone call. 30 minutes later, Patricia Henderson arrived at Sandra's house, where I had gone to calm down, according to what we told Jack. Patricia had been my friend in college before becoming a successful divorce attorney. We had fallen out of touch over the years, but her fierce intelligence and loyalty hadn't changed. She listened to my story without interruption, taking occasional notes. "First things first," she said when I finished. "We need to document everything and protect your access to marital assets before he can hide them." For the next hour, Patricia outlined a plan. Document all financial accounts, gather evidence of Jack's affair, make copies of important papers, secure personal valuables and irreplaceable items. "Can he really just take everything?" I asked, the fear evident in my voice. "Not if we act quickly and strategically," Patricia assured me. "Georgia is an equitable distribution state. After a long-term marriage like yours, you're entitled to a fair portion of marital assets, but we need to make sure he doesn't start hiding money before we file." Patricia's confidence gave me strength. For the first time in years, I felt like I had options, like I wasn't trapped. "When should I file?" I asked. "Let me do some preliminary work first," Patricia advised. "But in the meantime, you need to get somewhere safe and secure your immediate finances." We developed a plan for that night. I would return home, pretend everything was normal, and wait for Jack to take his nightly sleeping pill. He had been using prescription sleep aids for years, claiming the stress of his job made natural sleep impossible. Once he was asleep, I would act. The wait was excruciating. When I returned home, Jack barely acknowledged me. He was busy packing for a business trip to Phoenix the next morning, though I now doubted every word out of his mouth. Was he really going to Phoenix? Or meeting Amber somewhere? "I'm sorry about earlier," I said, forcing my voice to sound contrite. I overreacted. Jack looked surprised, but pleased by my apparent submission. "It's fine. You were emotional. I shouldn't have lost my temper either." His non-apology for destroying my government-issued passport made me want to scream, but I maintained my calm facade. "I'll apply for a new passport next week. Maybe I can still make the wedding." "Good idea," he said, though his tone suggested he didn't really care one way or another. "I'm tired. Going to take my pill and turn in early. Morning flight." I nodded, relief washing through me. The sleeping pill was part of our plan. Once it took effect, Jack slept deeply for at least 6 hours. I busied myself tidying the kitchen, waiting. An hour after Jack went upstairs, I quietly checked on him. He was sound asleep, the prescription bottle on his nightstand. My heart pounding, I began executing our plan. First, I went to our home office and logged into our financial accounts. I took screenshots of everything, emailing them to a new account Patricia had helped me set up. I photographed recent bank statements, investment reports, and tax returns. I found statements for credit cards I didn't know existed, showing lavish expenses that could only be for Amber. Jewelry, weekend getaways, designer clothes in sizes much smaller than mine. Next, I located our safe hidden in the closet of Jack's home office. The combination was our wedding date, another irony. Inside were our wills, insurance policies, property deeds, and Jack's collection of rare coins his grandfather had left him. I took photos of the documents but left everything in place. The coins, however, I carefully removed. They were worth thousands and were technically family heirlooms that Jack had inherited before our marriage. But after what he had done, I no longer cared about legal technicalities. I would use them as leverage if needed. I moved through the house, methodically gathering irreplaceable personal items. Photos of my children that couldn't be replaced. My mother's wedding ring. The first edition book my father had given me before he died, the quilt my grandmother had made for me. In our bedroom, Jack continued to sleep deeply unaware of my activities. I packed a single suitcase with essential clothing and toiletries. Not too much, just enough for a few weeks. I took one credit card from his wallet and $200 in cash from his emergency stash. At my desk, I wrote a detailed letter explaining my departure and my terms for a potential reconciliation, though even as I wrote them, I knew Jack would never agree. No contact with Amber. Marriage counseling. Complete financial transparency. A post-nuptial agreement protecting my interests. I sealed the letter in an envelope along with divorce papers Patricia had prepared for me to use if needed. I placed it prominently on the kitchen table where Jack would find it in the morning. As I prepared to leave, I took one last look around the home we had built together. Every corner held memories. Christmas mornings with the children, dinner parties with friends, quiet evenings reading by the fire. Had any of it been real? Had Jack ever truly loved me? Or had I been a convenient accessory to his life, easily replaced when someone younger came along? The questions had no answers, at least not tonight. What mattered now was taking back my power, my dignity, and my future. I called a 24-hour locksmith who arrived discreetly at 2 a.m. He changed all the locks and provided me with the only set of new keys. The final touch was a security camera I had purchased and hidden near our front door weeks ago when Jack's behavior first made me feel unsafe. Now I could monitor his reaction remotely when he discovered I was gone. My last call was to our adult children. I couldn't leave without telling them something. I didn't want them to worry when they couldn't reach me at home. Emma answered groggily. "Mom, it's the middle of the night. Is everything okay?" "I'm leaving your father," I said simply. "I'm safe, but I won't be at the house. I'll explain everything tomorrow." Her sharp intake of breath told me she was fully awake now. "What happened? Did he hurt you?" "Not physically." I couldn't bring myself to share the full story yet. "I'll call you tomorrow with details. I just didn't want you to worry." A similar call to Thomas left both my children confused, but assured of my safety. I promised to fill them in properly once I was settled. With everything in place, I took one final walk through the house that had been my home for over 20 years. In the kitchen, I left my wedding ring next to the envelope with the divorce papers, a fitting symbol of the end. Leaving my home at 2 a.m. suitcase in hand was the most terrifying and liberating moment of my adult life. The night air felt different somehow, charged with possibility. For the first time in years, I was acting rather than reacting. The drive to Sandra's house took only 15 minutes, but it might as well have been a journey to another planet. Each mile created distance not just from my physical home, but from the identity I had cultivated as Jack's wife. Who was I without that role? I was about to find out. Sandra was waiting for me, porch light on, door open. Her guest room was prepared with fresh sheets and towels. "Welcome to the first day of your new life," she said, embracing me. Despite the emotional exhaustion, I slept soundly that night. No anxiety dreams, no waking to check if Jack was home, just peaceful, uninterrupted rest. Morning brought coffee toast and a flurry of activity. Patricia arrived early, and we began the process of legally protecting my interests. Emergency orders to prevent Jack from emptying accounts or selling property. Documentation of all marital assets. A formal request for temporary support while the divorce proceeded. "I've expedited everything," Patricia assured me. "By noon, Jack will be legally prevented from financially retaliating against you." Around 9 a.m., my phone began buzzing with calls from Jack. I ignored them, letting them go to voicemail. The security camera I had installed showed him discovering the changed locks, trying his key repeatedly, then pounding on the door in frustration. His face contorted with rage when he realized I was gone. The voicemail started angrily. "What the hell is this, Bessie, to change the locks? Are you crazy? Call me immediately." Then came threats. "If you think you're getting a penny from me, you're delusional. I'll fight you every step of the way. Finally, panic. The bank just called. What have you done? My accounts are frozen, Bessie. This is insane. Call me right now. Patricia nodded with satisfaction. The emergency orders are in effect. He can't touch the marital assets now without court approval. By afternoon, both Emma and Thomas had arrived at Sandra's house, concerned and confused. I sat them down and explained everything. Jack's affair with Amber, his financial deceptions, the burned passport, years of emotional manipulation. Dad told me you were having mental health issues. Emma said, her expression troubled. That you were imagining things and needed help. Classic gaslighting, Patricia commented. Making others question your sanity is abuse 101. Thomas, always protective, was furious. I'm going over there right now. No, I said firmly. This is between your father and me. I don't want you involved beyond knowing the truth. But what he did to you, Thomas protested, is being handled legally. I finished for him. The best support you can give me is to let me handle this my way. Both my children eventually agreed, though, reluctantly. They stayed for dinner, and for the first time in years, I felt the warmth of family support without Jack's dominating presence. Later that evening, Sandra showed me a text from a mutual acquaintance. Jack had called Amber from the airport, frantic about the divorce papers and frozen accounts. Amber, upon learning the full situation and realizing she might be called to testify in a divorce proceeding, had apparently ended their relationship on the spot. She told him she couldn't be involved in such a mess, Sandra reported with undisguised satisfaction. Apparently, he told her you were separated and the divorce was already in progress. The news didn't bring me joy exactly, but there was a certain poetic justice to it. Jack had destroyed our marriage for a relationship built on lies, and now both lay in ruins. The next morning brought more developments. Jack had been forced to cancel his business trip to deal with the legal notifications. He had contacted his own attorney, who apparently advised him of the seriousness of his situation. His tone in subsequent messages shifted from threatening to conciliatory. Bessie, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. We can work this out. I didn't respond. Years of conversations had led nowhere. Now, I would let the legal process speak for me. Jack's boss at the financial firm called me, directly concerned about rumors circulating in the office about Jack and Amber. I confirmed the affair, but declined to provide details. I just thought you should know, he said carefully, that we have strict policies about supervisors having relationships with subordinates. This information may be relevant to Jack's employment status. By week's end, Jack had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his relationship with Amber, who reported directly to him. The professional consequences of his actions were beginning to materialize alongside the personal ones. As the days passed, I began to establish new routines. Morning walks with Sandra, afternoon consultations with Patricia, regular check-ins with my children. For the first time in decades, my schedule revolved around my needs, not Jack's. I slept deeply each night, no longer disturbed by worry about when Jack would come home or what mood he would be in. The constant knot of anxiety that had lived in my stomach for years began to loosen. Jack's attempts to access our joint accounts and credit cards were repeatedly blocked by the court orders. His frustration mounted as he realized how thoroughly Patricia had protected my interests. According to Emma, who reluctantly met with him for coffee, he was staying at a modest hotel and reassessing his priorities. Word of our separation spread through our social circle. To my surprise, many friends reached out with support. Some shared that they had never quite trusted Jack or had noticed his condescending treatment of me at gatherings. Others confessed they had suspected the affair but hadn't known how to tell me. Most surprising was the reaction of Jack's sister, Margaret. She called me directly, bypassing Jack entirely. He did this to his first girlfriend in college, she revealed. Cheated, then blamed her, then tried to control the narrative. I've watched him do it to you for years, but didn't know how to intervene. Her words confirmed what I was slowly coming to understand. The problem had never been me. It had always been Jack. 6 months after leaving Jack, I settled into my new apartment. It wasn't as spacious as our suburban home, but it was mine, decorated exactly as I wanted. Bright colors, art I had chosen, plants everywhere. No one to criticize my choices or undermine my confidence. The divorce proceedings had been contentious but ultimately favorable for me. Jack's attempts to hide assets backfired when Patricia uncovered offshore accounts he had maintained for years. His affair with a subordinate damaged his professional reputation, resulting in demotion rather than the partnership he had long pursued. The judge had little sympathy for his claims that I didn't deserve half our marital assets, since I hadn't worked in years, pointing out that my role as homemaker had directly enabled his career. The settlement provided me with financial security, half the value of our home, half his retirement accounts, substantial alimony given the length of our marriage, and the significant disparity in our earning potential. Jack fought every provision, but ultimately lost. With Patricia's help, I expedited a replacement passport, and in a delicious twist of fate, I traveled to Italy after all, not for Diane's wedding, which had already passed, but for a 2-week vacation with Sandra. We visited Florence, Rome, and the Amalfi Coast. I sent Jack a postcard from each location, not out of spite, but as a declaration of my new freedom. My relationship with my children strengthened without Jack's controlling influence. Emma visited monthly and Thomas called weekly. They witnessed their mother transforming from a diminished version of herself back into a woman with confidence and joy. "You seem younger," Emma remarked during a weekend visit. "More like the mom I remember from when we were little." Jack had moved to a different city for a fresh start, his reputation in Atlanta tarnished beyond repair. Amber had long since disappeared from his life, reportedly dating someone closer to her own age. According to mutual friends, he had aged visibly since our separation, the stress of financial constraints and professional setbacks taking their toll. I returned to teaching part-time at a local adult education center, helping immigrants prepare for citizenship tests. The work fulfilled me in ways I had forgotten were possible, using my education and skills to make a tangible difference in people's lives. New hobbies filled my calendar: a photography class, volunteer work at the botanical garden, hiking group on Saturdays. Activities Jack would have dismissed as frivolous now brought me genuine pleasure. Most surprising was my tentative entry into dating at age 56. Nothing serious, just occasional dinners with a kind widower I met through my volunteer work. After decades with Jack, the simple experience of being treated with consistent respect felt almost disorienting. Through it all, I continued to reflect on the warning signs I had ignored for so long. The gradual isolation from friends and family, the constant criticism disguised as concern, the financial control, the way Jack had rewritten our history to diminish my contributions. I stopped blaming myself for staying. Emotional abuse escalates, slowly normalizing abnormal behavior until it becomes your accepted reality. Instead, I focused on forgiving myself for not recognizing my worth sooner. Understanding the psychology behind emotional abuse became another interest. I read books, attended workshops, and eventually began facilitating a support group for women in similar situations. Sharing my story helped others recognize their own circumstances and find the courage to make changes. My volunteer work expanded to include advocacy for domestic abuse survivors. Few people understood that abuse isn't always physical, that emotional and financial control can be equally devastating. I became determined to help others see the signs I had missed. The journey wasn't linear. Some days brought anger at the years lost. Others brought grief for the marriage I had thought was real. But increasingly, days were filled with genuine contentment and discovery. The day he burned my passport was the day I found my freedom. I often told women in my support group, not because I left that night, though I did, but because in that moment I finally saw clearly what I had refused to see for years, that I deserved better, that we all deserve better. Life at 56 wasn't what I had imagined when I married Jack at 27. It was both more challenging and more authentic than the comfortable illusion I had maintained for decades. Every decision from what to eat for dinner to how to invest my settlement was now truly mine. Perhaps the most profound lesson was learning that it's never too late to rebuild. Not just relationships or careers, but your very sense of self. The woman who drove away from her home that night with one suitcase and tremendous uncertainty had become someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. I sometimes wonder if Jack ever truly understood what he lost when he burned my passport that night. Not just a wife who managed his home and supported his career, not just a partner who had stood beside him for 28 years, but a woman with untapped potential and incredible capacity for growth and joy. His attempt to control me had ultimately set me free. Free to discover who I was beyond my roles as wife and mother. Free to create boundaries based on self-respect rather than fear. Free to build a life that reflected my values and desires. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with your experience, please know you're not alone. The hardest step is recognizing that you deserve better. The second hardest is believing you have the strength to change your circumstances. But I promise you that strength exists within you just as it existed in me. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you find your strength? Share your story in the comments below. And if my journey has inspired you in any way, please subscribe to hear more stories of women who refuse to be defined by others. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your life and your joy.